Hi everyone, welcome to Ecopeace Teen Cafe. We are hosting Ecopeace a talk with young change makers, and today we have a wonderful guest from the US, and she is Stacy and Dr. Stacy Estrada-Smith. So welcome, Stacy. So before introducing you, I would like to give a brief introduction about Ecopeace Teen Cafe. Ecopeace Teen Cafe is an online platform for teenagers and young people to have dialogues. And also we provide education programs on peace and climate education. We started in 2021 after the COVID. So we are here to share the hope and share our inner peace with everyone. And we are trying to build a better, safe, and peaceful world. So we host Ecopeace Youth Talk with young change makers, and we are trying to explore what other change makers are going through, what inspired them to be a peace builder or environmental activist. And it's like a 30-minute journey with the young change maker to explore their learnings and experience and their challenges. So today we are going to listen from Stacy. Dr. Stacy is an accomplished facilitator, speaker, and consultant, boasting over 11 years of unwavering dedication to leadership development, with a special focus on empowering first-generation Latinas from historically underserved communities. Stacy recently achieved a significant milestone with the completion of her Ph.D. Congratulations, Stacy, for completing your PhD and also for bringing the leadership development. Stacy's educational background includes a BA in International Relations from UC Santa Barbara and MBA with a focus on intergenerational management from Concordia University and MA in Peace and Conflict Studies from the UN mandated University for Peace, Costa Rica. And she completed her PhD from the same institution. And I personally know Stacy since 2018, and we met during our master's program there. So once again, welcome to our home, welcome to our family, and we would love to hear from your experience and peace building journey and like what inspired you or what sparked you for this area, like to come to this area. So please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Greshma. And it's so nice to connect with you and to see all the wonderful things that you've done for your community. And so I want to thank you for this opportunity with this. One of the reasons why I started my journey into leadership development and specifically for first generation Latinas is because I come from a community where the demographic population is majority Latinos. We live very close to the border of Mexico. So I live in California and I live very close to the border of Mexico. So there's a huge influence of Mexican traditions and culture within my area that I live. So it was very personal to me why I chose this specific topic. The other reason was because my mother was a first generation Latina. I saw her work very hard. I saw her, she was a huge impact in my own leadership journey. I would see her get up early in the morning. I would see her devote her time to her community, devote her time to her family, an advocate for others. I saw my dad do the same. So they were very much influential in my early years growing up, and watching them made me understand the value of community and people. And it just, I guess I could say, it helped me to understand that we are not just here for ourselves, but we're here to help other people and join with other people and support other people. So they were very community minded. And because of that, I became community minded and wanted to then develop my education and work to help influence our community. So that was the reason I decided to pursue this particular education. Some of the key findings that I found were very interesting. So I won't get into all the technical of how I did my dissertation. I have the document if anybody would like to read it, so you can see. And of course, I'm always available for, dialogue about that. But I think the most interesting key finding in my dissertation was using the self-efficacy theory to communicate with first-generation Latinas. So self-efficacy theory is really why do you do what you do? What motivates you to do what you do? It's a theory that can be used in psychology and sociology. It's a theory that's used and very popular amongst people like myself who study why people do what they do. And so I use this theory to apply it to first generation Latinas and ask the question, what makes you become a leader? In an area where there's not a lot of representatives of women leaders, especially Latina leaders, what makes you pursue it and stay persistent in your educational and leadership journey? So this was really important to me because the goal is to take their answers and help create programs or education that develops new leaders and helps encourage Latina leaders in our communities so we can increase representation. So what I found was that these women all had very different experiences, right? They had different challenges. Some of them grew up with very supportive families. Some of them grew up with families that didn't support leadership development. But the one thing that they all had in common was their response to these challenges that they had. So many women faced sexism, they faced racism, they faced lack of resources, lack of networking. They faced so many challenges, but the one thing they had in common was their response. And their response was always value centered. So what I mean by that is whenever they faced a challenge, they went back to their values, and their values were people, community, self, and resilience. Those four were their top values. So whenever they faced racism, they went back to their values and they, developed a response from those values, and that's how they moved forward. So it was a very strong, resilient type of response, and I just found that very interesting in my research.
Yeah, when you share your findings, I can feel the deep passion and also like when you share the stories of your father and mother, I can feel like why you choose this and how deeper your paper is. Like when you do the PhD, like when you did the PhD, like um I know like what you've gone through, and I can feel like your experience. So thanks for sharing that. And moving to the next question, like how do you believe self-awareness, ownership, and resilience contribute to effective leadership, particularly within historically undeserved communities?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So self-resilience, ownership, and so I think it was self-awareness, ownership, and resilience. Those three things were it was kind of like as a researcher, what I was understanding from the dialogue of these leaders. I understood that these leaders were very self-aware of what was happening. They weren't naive to the problems or challenges faced being a woman, being from lower income, being a Latina from not from not from a background which helps emphasize leadership abilities. They understood all these challenges. They were not blind to them. So self-awareness was the first key characteristic that I found that I thought was really interesting because, sometimes you can become something and just kind of ignore all the naysayers, but these women didn't ignore. They heard it, they understood it, they understood their challenges that they were going to face, and they would respond to those challenges. So self-awareness was a really big key characteristic in the leaders that I spoke to. The next one was ownership. When they realized that these were the issues that they were facing, they didn't place blame on other people. They recognized what was happening, but they never placed blame. What they decided to do instead was say, okay, what is it that I can do to make an impact? What is it that I can do to make a change? And sometimes they hit roadblocks or walls or areas where they couldn't make a change. So they would have to be creative in how they wanted to lead in these areas or how they wanted to call out what was happening in these areas. So they took ownership, personal ownership. What can I do? Not what is everybody else doing? What can I do? So that was the other second key characteristic in these leaders. And then the third was resilience. They spoke a lot about resilience and about this idea that it's not going to be easy. This is a journey. If you decide to be a leader, no matter where you're at, where you're from, what community you work in, if you decide I'm going to be a leader or a peacemaker or make some impact or some change in my community because it needs it, it's going to be challenging. It's not going to be easy. People do not like change. And so you're really going to have to immerse yourself. You're going to have to learn about the community. You're going to have to learn about what are the ways of opportunity in order to make a strong impact. You're going to have to learn, does the community want the change? Because if your community doesn't want to change, then you have to understand why, and so those are all important questions you need to ask yourself if you're a peacemaker or a change maker in your community. Because to go into a community and say, I know what's best and I know what's right and this is what needs to be done is a very narrow-minded leader. Those are the three characteristics that these women taught me in my studies.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. Like, never blame others, but taking your own personal ownership. Yeah, that's really helpful for me also. Like, while you shared, I was reflecting my own leadership, like how I am. So, yeah, thanks for pointing out that. And maybe we can talk more about your Rotary Peace Ambassadorship and like how you get the grant and all about that. So, as a Rotary Global Peace Ambassador and recipient of the Rotary Global Grand Scholar Award, could you tell us about your experience studying peace and conflict in Costa Rica and the impact it has had on your work?
Yes. Um, so I thought about this question a lot because I wanted to share something that was a little bit unique about my background. When I first started out in peace education, I need to go back a little bit. My goal was not peace education. My goal was to become a reporter. And I actually started working at a news station, a very popular news station out here in California, and it was going really, really well. And when I was working there, I spoke to one of my, I guess you could say she was a boss, she was a supervisor, and she asked me, what is your long-term plan here? And I know you're about to graduate school, you've been working in our news station for some time, and you're about to get a job here. So what is it that you want to do? And in all honesty, I had been working in the news station for so long that I started to understand myself a little bit differently. When I would hear these news stories, they were so sad and daunting and very impactful. And I used to think, well, okay, we share the news, but what are we doing about this news? What are we doing to help support our communities? What are we doing to help solve the issues? We're reporting, but I want to know, I want to be a part of the change. So that's really where the mindset changed. And I started really considering my future in peace education and peace development and leadership. Leadership was always that buzzword because, leadership impacts us in every area of our life. And leadership for me is very simple. It's not this big, grandiose role that you have. It's really the ability to influence others. If you have an ability to influence others, then you're a leader. And I think we all have that ability. So it's really developing those leadership skills within ourselves and then also recognizing good leadership outside of ourselves. And so that's really where it began. I was very involved in my community. I would help volunteer. I would start, I remember starting this event in my community where I got people to go outside and work out. And I raised money for services out here for cancer, for those families who were suffering cancer. I did so I hosted fundraisers, I did running events, I volunteered. I would go to Mexico and volunteer at orphanages. And these were just things that I just wanted to do because I just like doing that. And, over time, all of these volunteerships, I mean, it's a pattern, you start to see like, okay, this is something that I do because I love it. And so if you're starting to see a pattern in the things that you're getting yourself involved in, then you start to recognize, okay, maybe I should do I should study this, or I should become an expert in this area. And that's really how I began to develop a portfolio, which then I spoke to an organization called Rotary International. They're global. They are everywhere, and they help support and sponsor leaders, potential leaders, global leaders. And so I had a meeting with them. I shared with them all of the volunteerships that I did, shared with them my educational pursuits, what I wanted to accomplish and achieve. And I was the first person chosen to be a recipient for a PhD in my district. And that was pretty amazing because they had never done that before. And they really believed in me, and they said, okay, we're going to put our investment in you. And they did, and they paid for my education and for me to travel to Costa Rica and be able to pursue this doctorate.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that journey, and also like how you did volunteering and that helped you to do the PhD. So many volunteers out there. I hope this will be helpful for them to find ways. And also, while you share, it also reflect like how this networking helps. Like you approach them and talk to them, and that eventually gets you the support from them. That's really important, like us young change makers and like peace builders who really want some kind of support for continuing their education and keep exploring the
Yeah.
field. So thanks for sharing that. And also you have been involved in developing peace education curriculum for refugee learners. So what are some of the key challenges you have encountered in this work and how you address them?
Yeah, thank you. So when I was going to school in Costa Rica, I really wanted to get myself involved in some type of field work to really understand what it is that I'm creating curriculum for. So it started with this idea that I'm going to find an organization where I can really put what I'm learning at UPeace into practice. And so I started working for this refugee humanitarian, I would say it was called the humanitarian course. So it was me volunteering. And one of the biggest challenges was that all of the participants, they were refugees, and so they came from conflict areas. We didn't know like their background story, and we weren't allowed to ask because it was private, and it was information that they could own that could actually be used um, like as a form of harm. So if we knew too much, then the chances of their information getting out could be harmful. So this was a very sensitive project that we were working on. So we had to be very quiet about it, and we couldn't ask too many questions. So that was kind of a challenge because I'm a researcher. I want to know, well, what is it that you went through? What is it that we can help, uncover? What can we develop for you that's personal? And so not being able to ask those questions put somewhat of a barrier. The other challenge that I faced was that they were all Spanish speaking. And though I am from Mexican descent, which means, I have the Spanish language, I didn't grow up learning Spanish. So Spanish is not a second language to me. It's something that, I've had to develop over time. And so I understand the language, but I couldn't speak back. So that was another challenge that I faced in doing this program. The way I overcame, and I'm so happy that they allowed me to do it, is I did talk to the supervisor of the program, and I said, hey, can I work with another colleague who understands and speaks Spanish? We'll develop curriculum together, and she'll be the one to facilitate. And thankfully they allowed me to do it, and I did. And so we went into this classroom, and I remember the first day, the age group was from all the way from like 5 years old to 75 years old. They were a wide range of ages. So that was another challenge, that we had to develop curriculum for a wide group. And then the other final challenge was they said, we want you to develop peace curriculum that helps them in removing the internal conflict that they've been experiencing in their country. and then help prepare them for their host country so that they can feel a sense of relief and that they're going into safety. Now, that sounds like a very tall order for not letting us ask any questions, right? So what we did is we relied on some of the peace education techniques we were learning within our program, and we used art as a form of our like as a tool in order to help develop these dialogues. And so what we did is we created these different projects, and they all were themed, and they all had something to do with one another, so they built on one another. And so the first one was like, okay, this is our classroom and this is a community. We're going to build a strong community here. And what are the rules of this community? So we empowered the individuals and we gave them an opportunity to set the rules and to set the community agenda. Then the next class was, okay, we're going to talk about traditions. What are traditions that you value? And then so we kind of got to understand their specific scenario through these art pieces that they were creating, and they didn't really necessarily have to talk. They were creating them in art, and then at the end of the class they would share, like, why did I create this? Why does this impact me? And so they were starting to like really hone in on what is it that they value. And so then once we understood what they valued, then we moved on to, okay, how do you connect it with others? And so there was a lot of team building that we did in those classes. And we didn't know if they were really making the high impact that we were hoping. We were just doing the best that we could. And what we did is we had an evaluator come into our classroom who did a lot of like evaluations, observations, testing, questions. They would ask questions to the participants. Well, what we found in that evaluation was that our class was the most impactful class that the refugees would go through in order to help relieve some of that internal conflict that they were experiencing. And so that made me very proud of the work that we were doing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And while listening to uh, like the story of peace education, I can imagine like how impactful that is. And also like I always tell this to the peace educators, like how like what kind of impacts you all are like creating, and like especially like transforming the mindset, and also giving like more healing and kind of bringing relief to their life. So yeah, thanks for all the work you do, and it's like it's incredible. So thank you so much. Yeah, from a peace builder who really appreciate your work. And yeah, it's like it's really brilliant. So maybe now we can move to the children's book series. So your children's book series, Global Friends for Peace, aims to foster inclusivity and tolerance. So what inspired to create these books, and what do you hope children will take away from them?
Yes, thank you. So the number one thing that I hope children will take away is representation matters. These books were centered around refugee experience, or the first book that we created was actually centered around the refugee experience. And that one was very purposeful and important to me because I was working with young children who were coming from conflict zones. And when you come from conflict zone and you leave behind everything that you leave behind your friends, your family, your school, you really enter an unknown. And it's scary. It's very scary. And I thought that these kids were really brave for what they did. I know that a lot of them didn't want to be there. I know a lot of them would have preferred to be in their home country, but because of the circumstances, they couldn't. And I could only imagine what that must feel like, and how it must feel to say, okay, I had so much here and now I'm going here and I'm starting from zero. That feeling of like self defeat, or that feeling of nobody, is going to know me in this new place. And now I'm completely out of my comfort zone. So the reason I created that first book was because it really spoke to the refugee experience, and I wanted kids who were going through that to feel seen. I wanted them to see themselves in a child's book, or in a child's. I wanted them to have that like fantastical imagination, and so that was the reason for that first book. the other books that came after had to do with being inclusive. So in our university, we had so many different, and I thought that was so beautiful. We had these events that really highlighted everybody's culture. And I thought, events are so awesome, but how do we make it so it continues to live in a document? And how do we create inclusive environments even at a young age? Because we start to see that kids need to understand that this is the normal part of life. And inclusion is a normal thing. It's not a thing that you have to develop later in life. It's a thing that you can create as a child and continue on. So this is the reason for the series. We started taking our friends and people that we knew who had these very interesting, unique backgrounds, and we would write stories about these people that actually went to the university. And so it was kind of cool because when we were done with the book, we would, present it and give it to the person who helped write the story, and were very touched. They had a book that was really sharing their life journey and experience, but it was also a children's book so that other children could understand their culture. And so that was the reason why we had started the book. And we started it a few years back. We've taken a break from it since it, because of course we are now involved in other bigger projects, but that was a very important project at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like super inspiring, like how you work and how you take um like the culture and sharing that and documenting it. It's really important. So yeah, once again, thank you. And I'm like, while listening to your stories, I'm really getting like lots of inspiration to do more. And also, this is where I'm kind of like stuck, like documenting the work, like especially we are having like lots of these kinds of dialogue with young change makers, and every time when they share the story, I really felt like, okay, there is like lot to write about them and even the conversation we are having. So yeah, definitely this is like this conversation really gives like more inspiration to document and share what we are discussing to others. Like as you said, like when you wrote this for the children who are refugees, but this also help other children to know like what they are going through and what their culture is. So it's really helps them to break the barriers of cultures, like kind of bringing like more unity and understanding the diversities and kind of celebration of diversities. So yeah.
Thank you.
So now it's time to uh learn or some kind of getting like more advice from you. So what advice would you give to young professionals, and particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds who aspire to leadership roles in peace building and community development?
Yeah, great question. So I have so much advice, but I think the number one thing I would say is start with what you have and what you know. I mean, there are so many people who will come to me and tell me, I don't have the resources or I don't know how to get involved. But everything I did in the beginning was free. I mean, everything I did came from an area of passion inside of me. And I know that for some people that could be hard. I worked and I volunteered. So it wasn't like I just had all this free time. It was really, I saw a need in my community. I saw a need to be a representation in my community of what it would be to be a leader, what it takes in order to make an impact. I wanted to be a representative. So that's really where it began. It was just this desire in my heart that no, I know that women can do more. I know that there's people out here who want to do more and they don't know how. So let me go ahead and start like rolling this ball. And also I experienced lots of challenges along the way. There's no way I could have paid for my PhD on my own. That would have been impossible. And I just really, really had this high hope and belief that I could go pursue my higher education and come back to my community and be a representative of someone who pursued their PhD. So I really looked for people who would sponsor me, organizations. I asked around, this is my dream, this is my goal. Is there anyone that you know that could support this? And it was through asking and vocalizing what it is that I'm trying to achieve that I found the right connections. So I know as peacemakers, we tend to be a little bit more on the soft side, or, peacemakers, we have this characteristic where, we try to understand and we try not to overimpose. And I just really feel like that's okay. You should be exactly who you are, but also voice and what you want to do is important and valuable in the world, and that there are others with resources that can help support that. So I just feel like you have to really put yourself out there, use your voice for impactful change, and you'll find the right organizations who also support that. And then it's great because they multiply your voice. When you connect with an organization like myself, I connected with Rotary. Rotary multiplies my voice. They not only sent me to go get my education in Costa Rica, they have sponsored me to be a part of the Women's Economic Forum in Colombia, where I got to meet other like-minded leaders. Then they sponsored me to go to Mexico and speak on some of the things that I was learning. And when you partner yourself with other organizations, they will amplify your voice. So that is my number one recommendation to people, especially from underserved communities who don't have the resources. Partner up with other organizations, because I do feel like peace is a topic that is very important in today's world.
Yeah, thanks. That's the best advice ever we get. Like start from what you have. So that's remind me like how I start Ecopeace Teen Cafe. Like after getting this master's and coming back to your community and seeing the need of starting something, especially during a period of like the second wave of COVID happened in India. So there is like a need of sharing the hope, and that's how I started. And at that time, like I don't have any money with my hand, so I just started like, and there is like a deep passion to start, and then partnering with different organization and getting more support, and then we realize like how that starting point helps us to reach somewhere. So yeah, so thanks for sharing that advice. And so next question is like, how do you envision in the future of peace building, and what role do you believe inclusive leadership will play in shaping it?
I actually wrote an answer to this because I thought about this a lot. I think, you know, my goals are really to work in the global sector. So doing more global work. I do believe that with technology, our communities are a little bit closer. I feel like I have friends from all over the world, not just because of Ecopeace, but because of technology, because of our ability to access one another. So I do feel like what we do here, what I do here in my little part of the world, impacts other people outside of this community. And so this is the reason that I feel like I can really make an impact outside of my community. It's really helped me, being at Ecopeace really helped me to understand how we influence other cultures, right? So my goal is to be able to do more discussions like this, and to talk a little bit more about leadership development, and to talk about how does it apply to your specific community, and what is it that you can do as a leader. Greshma, what can you do as a leader in your own community that helps impact your space that you're in, or the influence that you have? And so my goal in getting my PhD is to work with young change makers or emerging leaders, and to help really develop their value set and their skill set, and how they can move to the next level and really make a higher impact in their own sector of the world.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that offering like the support. So this is what we really want, especially like young change makers. Sometimes we feel like uh we are really stuck, like how don't know like how to move forward, and being in this global sector and global peace building, like, and also there is um every day we are facing like different kind of discrimination, and sometimes we really don't know like how to move forward. So yeah, so yeah, so I really appreciate your way of thinking and how you really want to support these young change makers, especially when you did a PhD in leadership and leadership development. So yeah, so the next and the final question, it's like a lots of questions, but we are coming to an end. And so, what are your goals for the future in terms of advancing peace and inclusion?
Yeah, so my goals, I touched a little bit on my goals just now with that last answer, but really it is to put out there that I am a consultant. I'm a global leadership trainer. So what that means is if anyone sees this talk or anyone wants to learn more about their own personal leadership development, they can contact me and we can work together. And I help support and develop a personal plan for each leader who contacts me. I've been doing this for several years now, and it's been so fulfilling to work with individuals and to really see it blossom and develop. Sometimes we get stuck on maybe like how do I find the right network, or where exactly do I begin, or I don't have any money, or we get stuck in these things, but there are ways around it. And how do I know? Because I'm a personal example of finding my way through all of those challenges too. So the other key thing is how to develop the characteristics of resilience, self-awareness, and ownership. Those are all important qualities that pertain to any leadership role. So I really want to continue this leadership discussion. I want to continue working with emerging leaders, and I want to continue working on a global sector to help influence communities for a positive impact, a positive and sustainable impact in their community. And so those are my overarching goals, and that's what I hope to do.
Yeah, so yeah, so thank you so much, Stacy, for sharing um all your thoughts, and we really we the Ecopeace family, we really appreciate all your work. And as a global leadership trainer, we wish you all the success, and we hope you can change uh life of lots of change makers out there. So yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, it's like lots of thanks actually. Like um yeah, you shared like immense wisdom to the room, and yeah, thank you so much. And any final words from you to the
Yeah.
Ecopeace family? So
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you to you, Grishma, for hosting and organizing and planning. I know that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, the technical things, the creating the questions, really studying the person who's going to come and do the talk, and finding the right people to come and do the talk. You do a lot of work behind the scenes, and I know it doesn't get really vocalized what it is that you do, but I just want to thank you for all the work that you do, because you open a space for dialogue, a very important space for dialogue, and you bring people together to talk about something more positive, and that is very impactful. And I just want to commend you on your work, and thank you for hosting me and having me today.
yeah, with great pleasure, and yeah, with great gratitude. So thank you so much, Stacy. And we will be in touch, and hope Ecopeace can host you again and again, and sharing your updates with the world. So so through hosting this conversation, we are also um like giving like more visibility for the young change makers too. Like we need to share their positive news and change making stories with the world, that really help others to connect you, as well as inspire others to do their passion. So yeah, once again, thank you so much, and we will be in touch.
Yes, thank you so much too. You have a wonderful day, and feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Efficacy among first generation Latinas in leadership roles. So could you please elaborate on the key findings